Hey guys, it's me. Today I'm here with my April and May wrap up. I combined the 2 months because I didn't read a lot in April. I read 3 books in April, and in May I did read quite a bit more. I wasn't really expecting that. Well, I decided to combine these 2 months worth of wrap ups, but here we are. So I hope you can still enjoy. Yeah, so all my stats are also combined for the 2 months, which was quite a lot of work to exactly figure out everything, especially like the averages was a lot of maths. So I hope you can appreciate this as much as I do. Let's go to the stats. In total, in these past 2 months, I read 11 books, which amounts to 4,290 pages, which is an average of 70.32 pages per day and an average of 390 pages per book. Then for format, I read 2 books. I own 4 books I read ebooks of, and I read 3 galleys from NetGalley, and I read 2 books from the library. For my star ratings, I have 1 2-star, 3 4-star, and 5 5-stars. So even though I didn't read a lot, I read a lot of things I loved, and it amounted to an average rating of 4.45, which I'm really happy with. Then for authors, I read 8 books by female authors, 2 books by male authors, and 1 book that was like a combo of like different gendered authors. And I read 6 young adult books and 5 adult books. I read 2 fantasy novels, 1 sci-fi, 3 contemporaries, 4 graphic novels, and 1 non-fiction. So those were all the books I read, these like the stats for the books I read these past 2 months. So let's just get into it. The first book I read in the month of April is The Desolations of Devil's Acres by Ransom. This is the first book and the last book in the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children series. I already did a whole series discussion on this series, so go check that out. But this is the last book. This series follows Jacob, who all his life has been told stories by his grandfather about this home for peculiar children, and Jacob doesn't really believe his stories. He just thinks that's a way of his grandfather dealing with the trauma of being alive during the Second World War. And then one day his grandfather dies, and Jacob finds like these things about this orphanage, and he goes to visit it as kind of to find closure on his grandfather, and he finds out that the stories were true, and a lot is happening in this peculiar world. I gave this installment 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. I think this was a great ending to the series. I read this in the middle of my slump. As you can see, it's a big ass book, but I read this in 2 days because I just absolutely flew through this. I couldn't put it down, get me on the edge of my seat the entire time. It isn't like action. There are moments that are kind of more learning about what's going on and like trying to figure certain things out and stuff, but everything is like so interesting, and like it's not boring when we're doing those things. It's all very interesting, and I really liked the pacing. I was a bit scared going into this book because if you don't know, this series used to be a trilogy and then got extended to a 6-book series, and I didn't like the 3rd book in the series, so the original finale I wasn't the biggest fan of, so I was a bit scared about how this was going to turn out. And also, I just had a lot of questions going into this book, and I thought there was no way Ransom is going to answer them all in a way that's satisfactory, but he did, and it didn't feel rushed. Everything felt really well paced. I really like the way this resolves the entire storyline. I think it did so very greatly. I really love our characters, and I love the time we got to spend with them in this book. I just like the whole, like we have like the big like battle ending, which was done very well, but then we have like this little ending where we're just like winding up our characters and like giving an ending that is satisfying to them, and that was done so well and made me cry happy tears. I was so emotional because of it, and yes, I really love this. So yeah, the next book that I read is A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor by Hank Green. This is the 2nd book and last book in the Call Zoology. The zoology follows April May, who one day on the streets of New York comes across like this huge statue, and she doesn't know what it is, but she assumes it's like an art project of someone. So she calls a friend who has a YouTube channel, and they just make a silly video about this. And then the next morning she wakes up, and it turns out these statues have been popping up all over the world, and no one knows how they got there. And her video has gone viral, and because she's like the first person to do anything in the public eye with one of these statues, it kind of becomes the spokesperson for these statues, which are called the Calls. And yeah, the first book is mainly about April dealing with fame, and then this book goes more into the sci-fi shit of it all. And I really love this book. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was amazing. Oh my god. This has multiple perspectives, and I thought it was a great way to go, because my main problem I had with the first book, which is an absolutely remarkable thing, was that I didn't really like April that much. She isn't supposed to be a very likable protagonist, but I just, being in her head all the time just took away from my enjoyment a little bit. So having more perspectives in this book really helped with that. I really liked seeing all these different perspectives, and each character was also like doing different things, and I thought all the things they were doing was so interesting, and they do end up connecting in the book, like the different storylines, and I really liked the way that was done as well, because you can just see like the puzzle pieces like falling together slowly, and I just had so much fun with that. And for the rest, I think this is a very intelligent book, I guess. Like I said, this leans more into like the sci-fi of it all compared to like the first book, and there's a lot of explaining of things, and it's a big commentary on humanity in general, and it just makes you think so much, and it has a lot of information to take in and everything. So like the middle part is a little bit of a slog to get through. Not that it's boring, because it's still like very interesting and I had a great time reading it. It's just there's so much information coming at you that, you know, it can be a little bit of a struggle. But I do think like the ending like pays it off so well, because yes, oh, it's so good. And it's made me think so much, and it took me a couple of days to like fully process this book and everything that was in it. It's so smart, and I just want to congratulate Hank Green for writing this, because oh my fucking god, it's so good. So yeah, if you haven't read it yet, but if you have read the first book, like definitely go check this out. It was amazing, and yeah, it's probably one of my favorite books of the year. So yeah, then the last book I read in the month of April is the Bromance book club by Lyssa K. Adams. I got this from the library, but I had to return it, so that's why I'm popping up a picture on the screen. This book follows a guy who plays, I don't remember what sport he plays, but he's a sports person. I think he does football. It's American, so he probably plays football, and it was like a big ass player. He's pretty popular, and his wife's marriage is like falling apart, and he doesn't know what to do, and a bunch of his team members recruit him into like this book club in which they read romance novels to be able to save each other's love lives. And oh, it's so good. I had so much fun reading this book. It was 4 out of 5 stars because I did have some problems with it, like the wife. We also follow her perspective quite a bit in this book, and I didn't quite like some things about her, and I don't know, I just had some very small problems with it. I feel like the ending was a little bit too quick and stuff like that. But overall, I just had a great time reading this book at this point. Like, these 2 books I read, like, in the first 4 days of April. And then I didn't read until this book, which I read on the last day of April. So, I absolutely flew through it. I read it in one sitting. I couldn't put it down. It was so addicting. I think just, like, the whole premise is so great. I think it's so cute. Like, the whole thing is just, I don't know, it made me swoon the entire time, and I don't know why, but it did, and I loved it. And I really liked the cast of characters. There's a lot of, like, we know all of, like, we get to know, like, a bunch of people who are in the book club, and, like, seeing them interact and help our main character, like, get his life back together. And I'm very glad that there's a companion series, because I can't wait to read read a book from some of these characters' perspectives. I'm so excited to continue into the series in the future, because yes, I definitely get to hype around the series because it is really good. It's very cute, and I don't know, I really like the concept of re-falling in love rather than just like falling in love. I think that was very, like, it's something you don't see often, and I really liked the way it was done. And yeah, that's all I have to say about it. I'm sorry. Then we're moving into the books I read in May, and starting off with that is Heartstopper Volume 1 by Alice Oseman. I started me popping in because I realized I switched up the character names constantly while talking about Heartstopper. So, I'm going through this again. Okay, so Heartstopper is a graphic novel series that follows Nick and Charlie, and they are put together in like the same homeroom. And they meet each other, they start talking, and become friends, and eventually they start falling for each other, and it's the cutest shit that has ever existed. This is the first volume, and I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I just think that this is a great introduction to the series. We get introduced to Nick and Charlie in the past was outed and has experienced bullying, and I think the way we deal with that topic was very well done. And Nick has previously only liked girls and is now starting to crush on Charlie. So, you know, he has is a bit confused. But I really liked following the two characters. I think they're very interesting and just great characters to follow, and their friendship is everything, and then it turns into a romance at the end, and it's even better. And I really love it. And then, of course, I also reread the second Heartstopper volume, which I also gave out of 5 stars, and this one deals more with Nick figuring out his sexuality as he and Charlie have started dating. They're keeping it a secret because, like I said, Nick is still figuring out his sexuality, so they just want to wait to like be in public, I guess, with their relationship till Nick has figured things out. So we have that element to it, which I always really love. I love it when there's a hidden relationship, and I think this did that really well, and it was just so adorable. And again, we're dealing mostly with Nick figuring out his sexuality, and I think that was also really well done, and I really like that. And then we also, I believe this is the volume that we get more like introduced into Charlie's friend group, and I really love that friend group as well. So I love seeing the dynamics in there as well. And yeah, then moving on to the third volume of Heartstopper, which I also gave out of 5 stars and was also a reread. In this one, they go on a school trip to Paris, and Nick's father, because his parents are divorced, Nick's father lives in France and he's trying to meet up with his dad. That's a little subplot in that. And then we're also starting to get to see the first pieces of Charlie having an eating disorder, which the next film goes into more deeper, and I'll talk about it then. And yeah, this overall is a very cute volume still. Like, the cuteness is still the overload, but we are getting more serious topics in this as well. As like I said, we're dealing with Nick and his father, and then also his brother, who, like, in the very beginning of the volume, his brother isn't the most accepting of gay people, so we're also dealing with that. And then again with the father, and then with Charlie, we're dealing with his mental health and his eating disorder. And I think the balance was very well kept. Like, the serious moments were serious, and you could feel like the heaviness, I guess, to it, but the overall tone of the volume was still very cute, so don't worry. But then we arrive at Heartstopper Volume 4, which was released in May, and which is the reason why I reread all the previous volumes, and I gave this, again, 5 out of 5 stars. This one is much less cute and more serious. We really delve into Charlie's mental health as well as his eating disorders, and then Nick trying to be there for him but not really knowing how. And I really like the way that was done and the discussions that were brought around that. But there were also still a lot of cute moments between the two, don't worry. But it is more on a serious note, I guess. So yeah, I don't really know how to talk about this volume properly without spoiling anything, but it's still really great. I feel like Alice Oseman knew how to discuss these topics properly, and I think that was done really well. And there was still some cuteness kept, so it still feels like the series, so don't worry. And yeah, those were my thoughts on Heartstopper volumes, so let's get back to the regular scheduled video. Okay, moving on. The next book I read is Malice by Heather Walter, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. This is a guy I got from NetGalley. This book is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and we follow Alice, who in this world, like, the Fae kind of bless the humans, and some humans get born with like this magical powers, and they're called the graces. And like, you have a beauty grace, a smart grace, or like they have different qualities and they do different things. And there's like this house for graces in which like they work, and there's different things, and people can come there to like use their gifts, I guess. And we follow Alice, who is called the dark grace, but her magic has nothing to do with the Fae. It is with another magical creature I forgot the name of. Damn, I am a bad reviewer, but basically they were like the big enemies of like the Fae. So because the Fae and the people have an alliance, she is seen as like evil, and her kind of abilities do like bad things. Like, if you want to curse someone, you go to her, you know. And then one day her Grace house gets invited to the palace for like Aurora's birthday, and because usually at these invitations there is like an inclusion like don't bring the dog ways, and unless it wasn't, so she goes as masquerade anyway, and she meets Sleeping Beauty. Like she meets Aurora, and basically how the curse works in this one, if with this royal family, every female heir kind of has this curse on her, and if she doesn't get kissed by her true love by the time she turns 22, she dies. That's kind of how the curse works. And the party she's invited to the palace for Aurora is for her 21st birthday, so she has like a year left. And yeah, that was the most messy way to describe the plot, but they meet, there's a friendship, romance, brewing throughout the novel. It's fantastic. And it's mainly about Alice being seen as evil and like learning more about her powers and how it isn't exactly evil and shit like that, you know? I know I explained that terribly and I apologize. Go on Goodreads or something and find the real description because I just did a terrible job. But I really like this book. I started it I think at the end of March even, and because of the slump I just didn't finish it until May. But it does have a little bit of like a slow introduction because you are like this whole magic system and this world is kind of getting explained, and it can be like a little bit of a slog to get through. But once you get like in the story, once Alice and Aurora meet, I feel like it all picks up very well. And there are a couple, like the main storyline is between Alice and Aurora, and them befriending and falling in love, and basically they do that because they're working on trying to find a way to stop the curse that is on Aurora, so she doesn't have to marry someone and she doesn't have to die. But we also have side storylines where Alice is like finding out more about her powers and like the history of her people and stuff like that. And I think that was all balanced very well and was very interesting. And I really loved the friendship turn eventual romance between Aurora and Malice. I think they built that up so well. It was great. And I liked learning more. I really liked the magic system that was set up in this world. And just like the whole world worked. I really liked all of that. And I think this does very much read like a fairy tale. Like everything about it is so fairy tale-esque. Except, I was going to say except dark, but fairy tales are very dark. But you know what I mean. I don't know, I really loved it. But then the last quarter or so happened and I didn't really like that. I feel like there was a lot going on and everything was so confusing, and it hinged on like certain characters who are very one-dimensional all of a sudden like doing something out of character, but like it wasn't really because, you know, they didn't really have a full personality, so it wasn't really that shocking. I don't know, I didn't really like the ending, but I do think I'm gonna read the sequel that is an answer to this, because I don't know, I really like the characters and I like the setting, so I'm hoping that I really like the sequel, but the ending was just not it. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this book. Then the next book that I read is 10 Truths and a Dare by Ashley Elston, which I gave 5 stars and got a galley off to a NetGalley. This book is a kind of spin-off of 10 Blind Dates by Ashley Elston, except they're not like an official series or anything, and the only thing that this spoils is the romance of that one, so, you know, you don't have to read them in order. But basically we follow a girl whose name I've forgotten, I'm sorry. She had a family like very tight, and it's the end of their senior year, and she is like the one in the family who's like known to be like very organized and very studious, so everyone expects the best from her. But then she gets the phone call of the school, like a mail from the school, not a phone call, what is this? She gets a mail from the school being like, hey, you did like off-campus PE and you don't have your hours like signed, so we can't let you graduate if you don't have that, so can you please fix that? And she does, goes and she took off-campus PE, she took golf, and she goes to a golf instructor and she's like, hey, I'm about to not graduate because like you didn't like give in like my hours. And he's like, well, you skipped quite a lot of my classes, so I don't feel comfortable, you know, signing this away. So, but she's like, hey, I gotta graduate. And he's like, so how about it's like this tournament at this golf thing, and I need some assistance. And she's like, yes, I'll be your assistant, I'll help, I'll work, and then I'll be able to graduate. But also the problem is that it is the last week before graduation, there's no classes, but every single day there's like these different like graduation parties, and her mom is out of town, but she has to keep in track of the phone of our main character, so, you know, things stay alright. So she knows that my mom is gonna ask questions. I'm gonna be at the golf course all day instead of going to the parties, and she doesn't want her family to know about it because, like I said, they have high expectations for her, and she doesn't want them to be like, oh no, she's not graduating. So her friends, she makes deal with her friends where they kind of like switch phones for the day. So her mom won't notice anything. And honestly, I really love this book because it wasn't obvious. I also really liked Tell Days, but I just had some minor problems with it. I don't even remember fully, but it was a 4-star for me. But this one I absolutely adored. I really love this family, and I think we just got a lot of them in this book as well, and I really love that. I really love the romance in this one. Oh, it's so good. It's the main focus of it isn't the romance. The main focus is on our main character and like learning some things and doing the golf course things and like panicking about like can I make parties and stuff like that. So I don't know, I thought that was really fun. I really liked following my character, just like the hijinks I guess she got into was really fun. We also got like perspectives of her friends as they were in charge of her phone about how they're panicking about needing to sound like her whenever they're texting. I like really learned how to do that. I really loved that as well. I thought it was really fun. But the romance was also really great in this. It kind of started this book where there's like 2 possible guys that could possibly be the love interest, but then as you get like more into the book, it's like obviously just the one character, and it was done so well, and I love it. It's a little bit enemies to lovers in a way, so if you love that, you might love this book as well. And I don't know, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I hope Ashley Elston writes more books within like this family. I don't know how she'd exactly do it because most of the other family members are paired up already, but I would still really like it. Even if she doesn't write romances, it's just like the core 4 hanging out, I would already appreciate that. I just think this family is just so much fun to follow. So yeah. Ooh, God, I'm very much a mess in this video. I apologize. I'm not making coherent thoughts. Oh well, we have 2 books to go. The next book I read in the month of May is The Hailing Game by Sally Thorne, which I got from the library. This book follows 2 main characters, a woman and a man, and they work at this publishing company. Like, these 2 publishing companies were like 2 companies, but then recently like merged, and the 2 bosses like don't get along at all. And like the guy is the assistant for like one of them, and like the woman is like the assistant from the other one of the bosses, and like they also don't get along. But then this company gets like this new position, and they both like are going for this position, and yeah, the rivalry gets even worse. And yeah, this is an enemies to lovers romance, and I gave this 1 of 5 stars. I heard a lot of things about this book, which is why I decided to check it out from the library, and I do think it very much deserves the hype that it got because it is a really great romance novel. But I just personally had some problems with it. Like, I didn't like Lucy that much. I mean, she was a great main character, but it was just moments where she was a little bit immature and she like overreacted to a lot of things. Wasn't the biggest fan of that. But for the rest, I do think she was like a decent character. And I really loved the love interest. Oh my god, he was fantastic. I really liked the chemistry they had. And yeah, the plot in this book isn't really that captivating. I feel like the whole thing, like they make this deal that whoever doesn't get the job, like the promotion, like has to, it's like to resign from the company, has to like go work somewhere else. I feel like that was so stupid. Like why did they decide that was a good deal to make? Like what's the point? Because like especially towards like the end, they're like, oh god, I don't want to give up my job. Like I don't even care if they're my boss now. I just like I want to keep working. It's like, then why did you make that fucking deal? Like nobody forced you to stop working there if you didn't get the promotion. Like that was your own idea. That was, I don't know, that didn't make sense. That's like the whole like kind of like driving force of the book is like this new like this job promotion that both of them want and they're both fighting for. But just like the fact that the other consequence, like, oh, you gotta quit if you don't get it, is just, I don't know. It wasn't the biggest fan of it. I also feel like the ending was a little bit quick. I feel like, I don't know, it went a little bit too much and wrapped up too neatly and for like how quickly it went. So I wish we spent a little bit more time with the ending, just like, I don't know, settling. But for the rest, I really liked this book. It did take me a while to finish because I was in a slump. I still am. But whenever I was reading this, I was addicted to it. I couldn't let it go. It was so much fun to read. And yeah, let's move on to the last book that I read in May. So also the last book for this video. Let's Fit and Queer, an anthology of queer and trans bodies and lives, edited by Miguel M. Bruce Owens, Grimm, Tiff, Joshua, TJ, Ferentini. I give this 2 out of 5 stars. It's not a gallery I got from NetGalley. This is a collection of essays of queer and trans people who are fat and their journey with self-love. And yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of this collection. I do think there's a lot of great messages in this book, and maybe another person would really like it, but I just feel like it got very repetitive. Like, a lot of the essays had the same message and had the same lessons, and the person went to like the same things, like the same overall arc, even if like the details were different. And I don't know, it just like got boring. I feel like there were some stories that could have been like very impactful, but because I've already had this message like in the past 10 essays, like it didn't really do much for me, and I ended up being bored quite a lot of the time that I read this. There are also quite a lot of poems in here, and I quite like those. I feel like when you look for an original thought in this book, it's in the poems, but then I feel like I wanted those things to be fleshed out a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know, I wasn't too happy with this collection. That was my thoughts on that book. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I apologize. So that was it for today. I was a mess. It's such a hard time forming like coherent sentences and coherent thoughts, so I apologize if this video just like wasn't easy to follow, but I hope you still enjoyed it. And yeah, it's been a while since I talked about books, so please forgive me. Well, a while. I did the series discussion earlier this week, but like for a wrap up, that's been a bit. I haven't done it in 2 months, so I apologize. And yeah, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of these books, if you've read them, as well as some of the books you read in the past 2 months, and I guess I'll see you guys next time.